What's up guys, Stevie here with Lucky Crit. Announced earlier this year, as part of the first ever Nintendo Fire Emblem Direct, Fire Emblem Warriors is an upcoming Nintendo 3DS and Switch crossover title featuring characters from the Fire Emblem series with the mechanics and gameplay of the Dynasty Warriors series. Dynasty Warriors is an award-winning series of hack-and-slash action video games created by Omega Force and Koei, loosely based around the Chinese historical text, Records of the Three Kingdoms. Fire Emblem and Dynasty Warriors seems like the perfect crossover, both having wide and varied casts of interesting characters, and both usually featuring warring nations as they aspire to conquer and defeat enemy armies. The game will be fully voiced and will feature the Fire Emblem series' famous weapon triangle system, alongside special bond conversations between characters, mimicking the Fire Emblem series support conversations.
As you can see, we have a grid-based map with adorable little sprites, which are reminiscent of the Fire Emblem series here.
Very familiar to fans.
Yes, and you actually have the ability to give commands to units you're in control of, and this is invaluable. It not only helps it feel a lot more like a Fire Emblem game, because you're, moving sprites around a grid-based map. It's kind of familiar, but it's actually a great way to help you stay in control of the map. Since you can switch between characters on the fly, you could actually set up your units in all corners of the map if you like, and then switch between them to make sure that you never lose control of a base. And these enemies, they're really smart actually. They'll call for reinforcements. They'll go after bases that you've already captured, so you really have to stay on your game and be aware of what's going on all over the map.
The pair-up mechanic from Fire Emblem Awakening and Fates will also be integrated, allowing you to attack enemies alongside other main characters and allies and unleash devastating attacks. While character level-ups are in Dynasty Warriors, this time around they'll be much more akin to the stats and level-ups of the Fire Emblem series as well. The game is being developed by Omega Force, Team Ninja, and Intelligent Systems. It's planned to be published by Nintendo and Koei Tecmo worldwide later this year. But since Fire Emblem is a series of strategy RPGs, and the Dynasty Warriors games are a much different hack-and-slash action RPG style, will you even like the game? Well, if the idea of running across the battlefield with near demigod levels of power and juggling hundreds, if not thousands of enemy soldiers in the air with viciously strong special attacks while capturing enemy forts and strongholds appeals to you, then you probably will. You'll also be able to quickly switch between characters on the battlefield, allowing for an interesting experience playing as the different members of the cast and completing objectives throughout the levels. Personally, I've played and enjoyed Dynasty Warriors 8, and while the gameplay can get a little repetitive at times since the characters you play are so powerful and most of the generic enemies are so weak, the story between the three kingdoms really did entice me and hook me in, wanting to play more. I also really enjoyed being able to play as any of the three nations, thus allowing me to see the story from the three different perspectives, and it really made everything much less of a black and white good versus evil trope. While we don't know much about what the story of Warriors will be, outside of some time and dimension traveling shenanigans like Chrom discovering Rowan instead of Robin, I'm hopeful that they'll put enough effort into making a solid storyline that fans of the series will enjoy experiencing. It would have been super interesting to have them place the different games or different nations, for example Elise, Nor, Hoshido, and Altea, against each other, and allow the player to take on the storyline from different perspectives like in the actual Dynasty Warriors games, but from what we've seen so far, this doesn't appear to be the case. We can also see that other story beats from Fire Emblem Awakening will also be in the game, such as Master Marth's clash against Chrom, which makes it seem as though they'll be adapting several bits of Awakening's plot into the storyline, or at least the initial premise. Awakening is the Fire Emblem title most involved with alternate dimensions and time traveling, so this might be why they've chosen to go that route, bringing characters from other places and times together in Warriors.
We're not going to give away anything about story here, but you will see a bunch of different Fire Emblem heroes and villains showing up, and you may just have to battle some of them.
It'll all make sense when you're playing.
It'll make sense when you play.
Don't fret.
But as you just saw, there was a stun gauge over one of those enemies, and Matthew I was actually able to whittle it all the way down, which allowed him to unleash a really epic critical hit on them, which did a great amount of damage.
In a Famitsu magazine spot, Nintendo and Koei Tecmo revealed more information on Warriors, including the rather incendiary claim that the game will mostly feature characters from Fire Emblem Shadow Dragon, Awakening, and Fates, the reasoning being that if all the protagonists across the series were added, then it would include nothing but sword characters. While this is certainly true and would present a problem for their inclusion of the weapon triangle system, they then proceeded to develop a handful of their own original characters for the game, including a brother-sister duo by the name of Rowan and Leanna, as well as their close friend Darius, who all use swords. I know I can't be the only one who sees the irony in their actions. I think they could have easily had a lance-wielding main character, maybe even an axe-wielding one to make it even more unique and original, and they could have had the other two protagonists take up the other two classic weapon types that make up the original weapon triangle. This is what Intelligent Systems did in Fire Emblem Heroes, and while I'm not a huge fan of having another blue-haired Lord character in Alphonse, I was at least happy to see that the starting cast of main characters featured a sword, axe, and a lance to complete the weapon triangle. It also gave us our first female Lord main characters wielding lances and axes, so at least that was new for the series. But why couldn't they have done that with these characters in Warriors? Well, we do know that Warriors was in development at the same time as Heroes, and when presenting their original concepts for the main characters of Rowan and Leanna, the team learned that their designs were coincidentally very similar to the sibling protagonists of Heroes, Alphonse and Sharina. As a result, Rowan and Leanna were both adjusted so that they could be more easily differentiated from Alphonse and Sharina. Perhaps this is why they were both given swords and neither of them is using a lance. I still think at the very least Rowan could have used an axe though. Many fans are also worried about their choice of cast. Focusing on Awakening and Fates characters makes sense from a marketing perspective, since these were the most popular games in the series, provided the most fan service, and sold the most copies. But they were also some of the most polarizing entries for fans, and many still yearn to see some of their favorite older lords and characters from other entries that they believe deserve more representation as a whole. Shadow Dragon was also an interesting choice, since it did not do very well in general, and the fan reception was pretty mixed, but I do think that Marth certainly belongs in a Fire Emblem crossover title, and so far, he's the only Shadow Dragon character in the cast that's been revealed.
So some people might be thinking, oh, there's a weapon triangle incorporated in this game, but still there are only sword users available. But we'll be announcing all kinds of characters from now on, so we really hope that people will be looking forward to all the different kinds of characters that will be appearing. Thank you.
Looking at the cast of Koei Tecmo's previous crossover, Hyrule Warriors, which released on the Wii U in 2014 and the 3DS in 2016, the cast included 13 characters at launch, and more through later DLC and game updates, totaling 29 playable characters, alongside some alternate weapons for some of the cast members. So far, the confirmed cast of Fire Emblem Warriors includes new characters Rowan and Leanna, alongside Chrom, Marth, Corrin, Ryoma, Xander, Lissa, Frederick, Robin, and Lucina. In total, this is 11 characters, and if we can glean anything from the Hyrule Warriors cast, we probably won't get very many more free characters included in the game at launch. However, Robin is the only playable mage character that's been revealed so far, and we've only got 2 axe units in Lissa and Frederick, alongside 0 lance-wielding units that have been showcased, so it seems that in order for there to be a fully fleshed out roster, with at least a handful of units in each weapon type like they were implying, there should definitely be a significant amount of more playable characters to be added.
We've got Ryoma now hacking his way through a bunch of minions.
Yeah, you really do need to pay attention to what weapon you have equipped and what weapon your enemies have equipped. And in the full game, of course, you'll be able to choose which weapons and items you equip your characters with. So.
The potential for characters from other games in the series appearing as future DLC characters is certainly there, but they'll probably steer away from adding too many more sword users, and I'm sure many players would have preferred to have a bit more variety in the starting cast itself, without having to pay extra for it. Is this a mistake on the part of Koei Tecmo and Intelligent Systems? Should the game have featured more fan-favorite classic characters in the cast, like Eliwood, Lyn, and Hector? What about interesting side characters that aren't main characters? Overall, just adding mostly lords, main characters, and their close entourage, to me seems like kind of a waste. While it would have been a lot of work and would have probably lent to a more generic and less interesting and unique cast all around, I'd have loved to have seen a plethora of playable characters from all throughout the Fire Emblem franchise. My prediction? I think it would be a huge missed opportunity to not have Fire Emblem Echo's Shadows of Valentia crossover characters in the game, at least Alm and Celica. While Alm is another sword user, I think from a marketing and self-promotion perspective, it's the right way to go. The Dynasty Warriors series is famous for having massive casts of characters, and I can't help but feel like some potential is wasted by their decision to have such a small and similar roster. But honestly, I'm just incredibly grateful for all the love and attention the series is getting lately, and I'd love for Fire Emblem to continue to grow into one of Nintendo's top IPs, so I hope the game will do well, and I'll reserve my judgment until the game actually launches and we have a full picture of what it contains. What do you think? Are you disappointed by the news of the game itself? Will you still be picking up a copy when it's out? I'd love to know, so leave a comment below. That's going to wrap up today's episode, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Be sure to slash the thumbs up down below, comment Warriors if you're excited, and also be sure to get subscribed if you haven't yet, to make sure you don't miss a video. And you can also follow us on Twitter at Lucky Crit Gaming for any news and updates revealed on the fly that might not make it into these episodes. And I'll see you all next time.
そうはいくか。俺だって白夜流の剣術に体が慣れてきたところだ。